Just confirming that it's working. And you are live.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the City of Annapolis Board of Appeals special virtual meeting for November 20th, 2024. Meetings being broadcast on the City of Annapolis YouTube channel, as usual. The agenda for tonight's meeting may be found on the City of Annapolis website. The agenda contains links to the City of Annapolis YouTube channel for viewing the hearing, also to the comment form, which must be submitted by anyone wishing to submit oral or written comments on a case, and also a link to the city's database for information about the case that we'll be hearing tonight. So let me remind everyone that communication with the board, any member of the board, by anyone other than a party to the case, must go through the comment form. All communications by any parties to a case must go through the board liaison Kim Consoli in the Department of Planning and Zoning. No one should contact any member of the board directly about any case under any circumstances. So we'll begin the meeting with a roll call. Kim, if you would, please.
Mr. Gallagher,
Yes.
Dr. Chen,
Present.
Mr. Zazali,
Here.
Mr. Walsh.
Here.
We are not expecting Mr. Hector.
All right. Thank you, Kim. So we've got a quorum of 4. Have the members of the board had a chance to review the agenda for tonight? It's an abbreviated agenda.
Yes.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Thank you. Kim, do we have any minutes tonight to approve?
No, sir.
All right, that'll wait until the next meeting. So getting down to the substantive agenda, we've got one item on the agenda tonight, appeal number, this is a new number for me, ZON 2409-001. This is an appeal from the decision of the Director of Planning and Zoning dated August 30th, 2024, relating to Athens Annapolis, a residential plan development off of Aris T. Allen Boulevard. For appearances, we've got Mr. Fulton for the appellants and Ms. Corres for the city. So this is a scheduling conference where we want to come up with a plan to get this case decided as promptly as we can. And these cases are decided on the record, which is usually the issue that we start with, trying to define the record. I found it's useful in order to define the record to just make sure we have a common understanding of what the issues are on appeal. So let me take a stab at it, and I invite Mr. Fulton and Ms. Corres to correct me if I've misunderstood here. So there was an approval of this plan development, and the director has determined that the approved plan has been abandoned and expired because certain actions not taken within prescribed times by the appellants. Certain permits have been voided because in the judgment of the director, they have not been picked up within 30 days after notice of approval. And that includes building permits and a grading permit. And they've expired within the judgment of the director. Have I missed anything, counsel?
Not yet, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. So let's turn to the record. First, let's talk about whether the approval has expired. Now, it's the director's position that the approval expired because no building permits were issued within 2 years. Do we have any dispute about whether building permits were issued?
I think we do. Would you mind if I,
What's the nature of the dispute?
well, I'll just jump right into it, Mr. Chairman. So this, on the abandonment or expiration of this plan development, I don't think the director's proposed record is adequate. This isn't an appeal of some zoning application or a recent administrative request. The approval for this plan development dates back a number of years, and Athens and its previous iterations have a long and complex history of permits, approvals, extensions, and correspondence with the city. I find it hard to believe that just 8 files, none of which date back further than 2022, except for the record plat and the 2006 approval itself, represent the entire record here. And more importantly, I think this building permit issue, which is acknowledged in the second paragraph of the director's decision, is pretty closely intertwined with the plan development approval. Let me take a step back. First, we dispute that there was no legitimate permit issued in the early years of this approval. This thing was originally approved in 2006. There was state and local extension periods for an assortment of plan development timelines. And what this record in more recent years does not seem to include is a permit which was issued, was paid for by Athens in 2023, and which is totally dispositive of this entire appeal. I understand that we're at a scheduling conference right here and that the posture of this case is an appellate one. But frankly, I'm looking at a permit that was issued in 2023. It doesn't expire until 2025. It was signed by a representative of the Department of Planning and Zoning, and it would take care of this entire appeal if the board were to allow for some motion that would, summarily dismiss or adjudge this case. Now, not only would I think this permit that I have in my hands take care of this entire case, but more to the point, it evidences that the record here that's been proposed by the director is not complete. Again, aside from those 2 earlier documents being the record plat and the 2006 approval, everything else that's been proposed by the director is dated 2022 and on. And we're looking at a time frame of 3 years. So just on its face, if you crunch the numbers, we should be looking back at least at 2021. And if I had to guess, there's probably a handful of relevant documents starting at eTrackit that have to do with this immediate 3-year time period. And if I also had to guess, I'd say there's probably a physical file at the city's Department of Planning and Zoning that contains additional records. So apologies for lumping all of this into one response here, but I think these issues are pretty closely intertwined. And the matter of fact here is that these 8 small files cannot possibly represent the entire record on this appeal.
Well, that's a nice generalization, but so the only thing that I heard that was really substantive is that you claim that there is a building permit that was issued and is still valid. Is that right?
That's correct. I could read you the permit number. I can show it to you on, the screen if you'd like, or I could circulate it through Kim Consoli. But yeah, I'm looking at building permit 2023-00138. It was issued April 19th, 2023. It expires April 18th, 2025. And the city confirmed that my client paid it on April 19th, 2023 as well, the same date that it was ultimately issued.
Jessica, should that be part of the record?
Yeah, it should be. And that was missed initially. I think actually the first time I saw it was when Alan Hyatt sent it to me. So for whatever reason, I don't know if it was missed within the department, but that had not been provided until Alan had sent it to me. So I've seen that. I know the document that Tripp is talking about, and that is something that can be added to the record. We don't object to that. That is something that should be added.
All right, Mr. Fulton, you've won one. What else in particular is there that should be in the record that's not?
Frankly, Mr. Chairman, it's kind of hard to say. Our firm has a handful of our side of correspondence, records, et cetera, which may be relevant to the case, and we would suggest should be included in the record. But as I acknowledged earlier, I'm willing to bet there's a handful of records either online or in hard copy at the department itself that might serve the exact same purpose as this permit I'm holding in my hand. For all we know, there could be 2, 3, 4 more permits, which really solidify the fact that this appeal just won't succeed.
What, do you have any reason to believe that there are other permits that were valid that you don't know about?
Based on the fact that we've found one since the director's decision, yes. But beyond that, I can't tell you where they might be or, what their permit number is.
Well, if you find them, let us know. But as you know, we don't have discovery in these appeals.
Sure.
So is there anything else in particular that you can tell us should be in the record that's not?
I can't off the top of my head just because I don't know what may or may not exist. What I would ask for from the board is some period to do 2 things: compile documents that we are currently in possession of that we believe should be part of the record, and perhaps second, ask the city if they can take another stab at looking through their own physical files and perhaps electronic files to make absolutely sure that what has been proposed actually is the record. Because like I said, I don't think these 8 files come close to what the board ought to be considering if they are going to consider the director's decision.
Well, Jessica, if you want to do that, you're certainly welcome to do that. I can't compel you to do that, but seems like a reasonable request.
Just a quick question. Does the city have any speculation how something as concrete as an actually issued and collected on payment permit went missing or unknown about?
I don't have a good answer for you, unfortunately. Like I said before, the first time I saw it was when Mr. Hyatt sent it to me. And then once it was provided, the department did go through and I guess found a copy. I don't know if it was misfiled or misplaced, but it wasn't in the same place that all the other documents were. So I don't know why that happened.
There's
or
no
how
digital
that happened.
record, like you can't search by plot or address or last name or driver's license
Don't-
number or.
Like I said, you can, but I don't know if this was for some reason put in the wrong file. I don't know if it was labeled wrong, so it was in a different spot. I don't have a good answer as to why it was not with the other documents for this project. I don't have a good answer for that. I don't know.
I mean, for every permit that was issued, there would have been a notice that it had been approved, right?
Right. So there should be some sort of paper trail that it was issued and documented, but I don't know why this one somehow fell through the crack of being with all the other documents for this one.
Well, I mean, the fact that there was one makes this case sufficiently more complicated that I think you've got an incentive to try to figure it out.
I think also the thing to also look at, I understand that, Mr. Fulton wants more documents than the 8 documents, but I also think there needs to be a limit on what we're providing, because the issue is there's only certain documents or permits that are the decision of those are being appealed. This is a very long, multi-year project. I don't think everything in the entire universe of this project is relevant to the appeal.
No, those limits are up to you. You decide what the record is, unless Mr. Fulton can convince me that there's something that was available and was considered or should have been considered by the director that you're not including in the record. So
I don't think Ms. Horace is wrong on that, Mr. Chairman. There certainly should be limits. I'm not suggesting that everything under the sun relating to this record or relating to this plan development be included in the record. But by virtue of the fact that, we have this one permit which was issued and paid for in 2023, it lends us to think there may be more. And again, I don't mean to sound like a broken record, but if the board wanted to or felt compelled to dispose of this appeal quickly, I feel as though this single record takes care of this whole case.
does the record suggest any reason why, if you had, Mr. Fulton, an approved and issued building permit, that you apparently applied for another one?
Could you say that one more time?
Well, the director sent you notice a month before August something that your several permits have been approved. If you already had them, why did you apply for new ones?
I have a feeling there are quite a number of permits that are associated with this plan development. This plan development gets chopped up into, I want to say, like 40 different lots. You know, the director notes, I think, 5 in his decision, none of which are this one, which came before he issued that notice saying, hey, these 5 permits are ready to be picked up. I'm willing to bet there are dozens of other, at least applied for permits, other than the ones that we've even contemplated this evening.
Okay, there's another provision that director relies on, that the plan expires if there's no substantial site development within 3 years of the issuance of the approval of the plan. Is there any dispute about whether or not there has been substantial site development?
I would think there is if the director is issuing this opinion saying that it is expired under that provision. And if anything, that determination lends itself to allow us to explore what really ought to be in the record here, because there is evidence of actions taken by not only our client, but like I said, previous iterations of this plan development that show, for what it's worth, progress in one direction and not no progress at all.
Well, I mean, this is an interesting issue in terms of figuring out what the record is. The issue that we're talking about is whether there was substantial site development within 3 years from the approval of the development plan. Presumably, your client would know that because you caused it to happen. I'm not sure how the director would learn whether or not there had been such development. Jessica, can you point to anything in the record that indicates what the director knew about whether or not there had been substantial site development?
When it comes to the permits that are listed in the appeal, I believe it's my understanding that the Department of Public Works actually went out to the site for several months at a time to see what the status was. And I think that is how that information was provided to the director. So I don't think there's necessarily anything written, but I think there was probably just verbal communications. So I don't think there's anything that we would actually be able to add to the record that
But
would.
were any inspections called in by the applicant on those permits for erosion control, land clearing? All the city has a very substantial pre-construction inspection requirement program that is supposed to happen and be approved before any actual construction or site development can happen. I would venture to guess that even that pre-inspection app work would have survived the questionable record keeping, because you can't even build an addition on your you can't even start to build an addition on your house without your pre-construction checklist being signed off by the city. Did anything happen on site that required an inspection?
It's my understanding that the reason why that these permits were voided was because there was no work. So nothing was happening and they expired. So there was no evidence of anything being done. That was the basis for.
And Mr. Fulton is contending that that's not true, that stuff was happening. But does it rise to the level of substantial? That's the question. And does it rise to the level did the director know, or should he have known that it was happening?
I think that also the appeal, the the appeal lists several permits specifically, and that's what the request from Mr. Fulton in the appeal was for. So there are several building permits and one grading permit. So the scope of what we should be looking at is the decision regarding those permits. I feel like this is now getting expanded into.
Well, I think it is expanded, but I think that's as a result of the director's decision saying that the entire plan expired. No?
That's my position, Mr. Gallagher, precisely.
So that, I mean, that covers any building and grading permits, as I understand it. Convince me if I'm wrong. So I guess the point, Jessica, is if the director believed that there was no substantial development, but he can't point to anything in the record that demonstrates that, then we look to Mr. Fulton to tell us what I think this is what we do, to tell us what the director would have found had he inquired. We look to Mr. Fulton to tell us that there was substantial development and the director should have known about it.
Not, yeah, and I think to add on that, Bob, I think it has to be, should have known, not through accidental observation. The record has to show that there was substantial activity in some way, that it gets, so that it survives to this moment for this purpose.
But
It can't just be the developer going, well, you saw me working there. You should have, I don't know that.
Right.
There has to be some.
So is there any dispute that the permits listed in the letter that says they are void, that is there any dispute that the appellant was given notice that those permits have been approved?
I haven't seen that those specific listed permits have been approved. I'm familiar with the.
It's one of the documents in the 8 document file that.
I think the 8 document file includes a letter asking or notifying them that, forgive me, I don't have it up in front of me. Give me 1 second.
That they've been approved.
Correct, approved, but not paid for and picked up.
No, that's the next question.
Okay.
Is there any dispute that your client did not pay for and pick them up and cause them to be issued?
I don't believe he paid for it and picked up these particular 5 in this decision.
So then what would be the dispute as to the narrow part of the director's decision that says that those 3 or 4, however many they were, permits are void because they weren't picked up and paid for within 30 days?
Mr. Gallagher, I can't guarantee that they haven't been picked up and paid for. I just can't do that on record at this time. I would have to see what files might exist at the city, if any.
Okay.
My concern prior to reaching these 5 individual permits is the director's more broad determination that the planned development approval expired in light of the fact that the department issued a permit for the planned development less than a year ago. Excuse me, a year and a half ago.
All right, well. So how much time do you need to identify the specific documents that you believe should be in the record that are not in there now? And there's no compulsion on the city to produce anything.
Sure. If we were to be consistent with some of the dates that you've included in your scheduling order, Mr. Chairman, it looks like there's about 2 weeks between each particular date. I'd appreciate it at least that amount of time, 2 to 3 weeks, to understand everything that we think ought to be considered by the board. And I'll caveat that with, again, I understand Ms. Horace's concern about including everything under the sun. That's not what we're looking to do here. This is a very long standing project, and there are probably a lot of irrelevant documents as well.
I
But
think if you identify things that relate to the issues we've been talking about, I think the director is going to want to have them in the record too. I don't think
Sure.
there'll be a dispute. So I don't have the scheduling order handy. What are the current deadlines?
I think this is actually the last one, but the first deadline was October 11th. The next one was October 25th, so that's about 2 weeks. There's a third deadline of November 8th, which is about a little over a week and a half.
Okay.
And then we're here today on the 20th, which is about 2 weeks from the last deadline.
So you want 2 weeks to come up with your list of what should be in.
I'd like at least 2 weeks.
Jessica, what do you suggest?
That's fine if council wants to give me the requests within 2 weeks, that would be, well, next week is Thanksgiving, so
I was
that
going
week
to
is a
say,
little
we've got the holidays coming up, Mr.
Yeah.
Chairman. It might be worth,
so,
could we say by the end of December?
I leave it to you guys to tell me what you want. If you've got a dispute, I'll decide, but if you can work it out, that's fine with me.
Trip, do you want to do it do you want by the 18th of December?
Sure. About a
Sounds
month.
reasonable.
Yeah.
And if you have a list sooner than that, send it to me and we
Of
can,
course.
yeah.
And then Jessica, when would you like to respond?
Well, then it's like Christmas and New Year's, so I worry that there's going to be a lot of people out and stuff. So, could I have until the 15th of January, because that'll give me some time after the holidays for people to be back in?
Do you object to that, Trip?
No, not at all.
So that's January 15. Do we have a mid-January meeting, Kim Consoling? Do we have a January 16 meeting? Or a January 15 meeting?
In January, we have the 7th and the 16th.
16,
Yes.
a Thursday. Don't we usually do them on Wednesday?
No, that must be the 15th.
Yeah.
I agree. That doesn't sound right.
All right, so Jessica,
Yes.
can you get it in by the 10th? Give us a chance to digest it by the 15th.
Yeah, I mean, if for some reason I'm having issues because
Yeah.
people are out of town, I'll let the board know, but I'll
Okay.
try for the 10th.
So let's try to resolve those issues on the 15th. I don't want to set a briefing schedule until we've figured this out.
Okay.
So, I mean, I think this has been very useful in the sense that we've focused on what the issues are, and I think we pretty much know what they are, right? Am I missing anything, either of you?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Questions from my colleagues? Okay. All right, well, let's do that then. I don't know what else we have on the 15th, but this won't take a lot of time. We'll squeeze it in, whatever we've got. That'll be a virtual meeting. And we'll go from there. Everyone good? Anything else?
Nope.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a peaceful and joyful Thanksgiving. And we'll see you
Radio.
in the new year.
Yep.